All right, so after trying different antennas, just different various setups, I pretty much circled back to stock. All right, so I'm back to the stock antenna. I tried some true RC matchsticks, which are highly recommended. So I had one kind of poking up here, one over there, and they were a little bit longer. Thing is though, the DJI goggles have 4 antennas and they're dual polarized, just like this is dual polarized, left hand and right hand. It's like, if you're going to replace the antenna, what's really the best way to go, right? So I ended up with 2 left hand polarized, and I've got a left hand polarized patch on the goggles, and then the 2 stock Omnis. So that didn't really work out. And the reason that I was so confident in just going back to stock, because I basically drove the same exact test route as my first test, where I'm partially blocking my line of sight with a building, and if I want to, I can go further around the building. With the stock antennas, I was able to go all the way around this building, probably about 350 feet concrete obstruction. I was able to navigate around in between some cars and like some box trucks, stuff like that, and I never actually lost signal. It never froze. Went all the way down to like 1 megabit per second or less, and it just kind of got a little fuzzy. Never froze. Totally made it out of there, no problem. With the new antennas, the video did freeze, and it got to the point where I was like, oh crap, am I going to be able to blindly navigate my way back to better signal? And I just barely could, but I didn't like that feeling, so went back to the stock, right? What I've also decided to do was just go with 1.3G for the audio. This little setup down here actually kind of worked around 750 megahertz, but the range on it was not that impressive. Fairly low power. Should still work, 100 meters or more, but you're only going to get that with, if you tune it real good. So these stock antennas that come with this thing. I feel like this guy just sort of bootleg cut a particular length he thought would work, soldered them on. So you've got like a real dirty joint on the antenna here for this basic whip, where you could probably do way, way better. How am I going to really make sure that I'm going to put a better antenna on there, given the running frequency? I don't know. I don't have the equipment, so really no point. Something like this would work well for relaying audio. So just like you have a ground station and you relay video with 5.8, something like that, you could easily relay your audio with something like this. So let's just say I wanted to put a receiver, which could be way smaller than this box. I'm just using this big speaker that I've got. Way smaller than that. You could have something that actually attaches to the goggles, uses a very small battery, lithium battery, and then that's your wireless audio. Headphones on there or whatever. The only thing is you're going to have another little relay station in your 1.3 receiver box. So that's one way to do it, but I'm going to have some receiver for that, which is more or less going to be about this size. Now, you could bring the form factor down if you wanted to, but let's just say that's going to be about it. I would slap a battery to this guy, 12-volt battery, and then I would have my audio output right here. So what to do with that, right? So again, I can also slap the little 750 megahertz deal on here, have that relay over to the goggles, and this will just be sort of a box that I'll leave sitting somewhere. Probably what I'll end up doing instead is just, instead of have like a little box like that, I'll just put this in the box with a little amp board and a speaker, make it as small as possible, and it'll just be some little receiver station just for audio. So wherever I'm at the time with the goggles, when I want the audio, then I can enable the audio on here, which will power the VTX. Then I'll just set this box nearby with a speaker in it. It's pretty much what I've already got for 1.3. It's just bigger than I want it to be. So just make another one smaller, right? And I've kind of been down the block with these, right? So these are like Amazon deals. These are all 1.3, but all more or less the same deal. Some probably will output more power. All of these I've got were about the same. So I've got these two. I've got another one somewhere. I've got one on a car from RMRC. And I've got, another one of these guys, RMRC receiver. But what I'll say is I noticed these units run pretty warm, right? They're very sloppily heat sinked. They're just kind of floating in there. Some of them aren't even really hard grounded to this shield right here. So you got a lot of things to do with them. But these will get warm. That's what I've noticed. You got to put a fan on them. This one right here, this is basically your Partom style unit. So while this is supposed to put out the same RF power as those other ones, this one actually only pulls about 300 milliamps tops. Those other ones are going to pull 500 milliamps or more. Those are going to get noticeably warm, while this one actually does not get warm. I've never seen it or felt it get warm. while the output signal on here, the RF power, is maybe not as good, it might be. Maybe it's just more efficient. But I've noticed that either way, I get pretty good range and very clear audio when using this guy, right? I'm just coming off a little 12-volt amp board here that I put an electret on, and that's just feeding the audio channel. So again, how I'm doing that is I've got a channel on my receiver that I can switch on with my controller, and that powers a little 5-volt relay down there, and that 5-volt relay switches power to the transmitter. So I'm also able to see, okay, if I go out a certain distance and I've got a certain signal on my DJI, is that going to be affected by switching on this 1.3? These antennas sitting like that. And no, it's not. I haven't noticed any difference. The only difference I've noticed recently was I just kind of tested the audio out, having everything finalized, and realized that somehow I destroyed my Arduino Nano and I wasn't able to arm the O3 unit anymore. So I just switched into high power mode, tested everything out, and that's when I realized, again, got more solid confirmation that I couldn't hardly go anywhere in just high power mode. It's up in the bit rate for you, but the full RF output power is not there. It's not able to penetrate. It's not able to, I mean, you probably do all right line of sight, right? But you're not getting any penetration unless it's armed and outputting full RF power. So that's necessary. So just to make sure, I grabbed a bigger Arduino Uno I had and wired it up the same way. I mean, that's literally all it is, right? I mean, I've got a 5-volt regulator on here just in case, just as sort of another little stopgap between the receiver output and this guy. But either way, it should be fine. 5-volt signals, powering the board straight off the receiver with these wires. You've got your ground and your signal wires. That's pretty much it. So the way that will work is when I power the receiver on, this thing is going to get a little green on light, so it's going to be powered. But then it's not going to output its, I guess you could say, working light until I flip a switch on the controller. Then it goes into full high power mode and da-da-da-da. That's pretty much the setup now. Added 1 voltmeter there, which, you know, that's a nifty idea I got from someone else on the internet. Put little voltmeters down here to show you your, you know, LiPo battery levels that you can always see through your camera, even if you don't have like a OSD. So that's a bootleg way to do that. And yeah, again, I've just got this 1.3 dipole. Might even switch that out, just kind of chilling, and that's how it's sitting relative to the DJI antenna. And I haven't had any problems with that. You know, this might not be the best location for that, but again, I really like having that audio. It's just a way better feeling. So I feel like this is probably the most ideal way to go. You're not really adding a whole lot of power consumption to your main battery. This thing is not getting warm. It doesn't need a fan. It's a nice little, you know, bulky, stubby unit there. And the sound is very clear. And you should be able to equal at least the range that you get on the DJI there. So yeah, that will probably be my actual solution for audio and even long range audio. Whereas if you don't plan on going very far, you know, if you're flying around, line of sight, not too far, then that's when that other option will probably be better.